Hello there, I'm Sean Greasley. Welcome back. This is tutorial 2 of our series where we'll be discussing variables, the console input function, type specifiers, and comments within C++. Okay, let's take a look at variables. As you can see, I've just typed int variable1 equals 0 semicolon. This may not make sense, but let's break it up into little pieces. The first piece here, color coded blue, is known as the type specifier. You can use other type specifiers. The one we're using now is int, as in integer. This holds a value between minus 32,000 odd and plus 32,000 odd. So if we change this to 64,000, we would end up with an error or a warning, as you can see at the bottom here. Okay, the next piece is the variable itself. You can call this anything you like. You don't have to call it variable1, you can call it your name, but let's call it mine for the purpose of this example. So we have Sean, which is of type of integer, holding the value 0. Semicolon at the end is used to break up lines within C++. If we didn't put a semicolon, it wouldn't compile at all. We will get quite a few errors. There we go, one error. As you can see, if we scroll across, we're missing semicolon before that. So C++ is a handy tool in ironing out errors and warnings. Okay. Now we've declared our variable Sean to 0, let's display it to the user. Using our cout command we learned in the last tutorial, we can display this to the user. Okay. It's good programming practice to leave tabbed spaces after each of these braces. You'll actually see why when we discuss if, while and for loops. Okay, so just remember to leave tabbed spaces before each line when you've got one of these curly braces. Okay, let's look at this line we've just typed. Cout, console output, as we discussed in the last tutorial. Afterwards we've got the C++ syntax used with cout, which are two little arrows pointing to the left. Always remember, come up with some kind of rule that arrows point to the left when you're using cout, console output. We're outputting something on the console, so they go to the left, something like that. Okay, the next piece is the string. As you can see, we use speech marks with strings, and this is the content of the string. We've then got two more arrows pointing to the left, and here's our variable, int Sean equals 0. Then we've got our end line, which we used in the last tutorial, and of course at the end we've got our semicolon. If we didn't use this semicolon here, C++ would think this is one whole line, which we don't really want. So we've got two lines of code, each with semicolons at the end. We're declaring our variable Sean as 0, and we're outputting it to the user here. Let's see. And there we go, the value of the variable is 0. As we can see, it is 0. If we change it to 333, let's compile it. The value of the variable is 333. Okay, so it works. Now let's have a look in depth at C++ comments. We are setting the value of the variable Sean to 333. As you can see, it's color coded in green. This is the C++ color coordination for C++ comments. These lines do not get compiled. You can write anything you like. It does not have to follow the traditions of the code. It's purely for your reference only. So if we compile, see, everything is exactly the same. If you want to comment on another line underneath, you could write 2 forward slashes again before your comment and go for it again. But if you use this command here, / then a star, it comments everything after this line. As you can see, look, this is green now, this is green, this is green. To end this, we just reverse it here, and as you can see, it's put C out back in black, and everything within the boundaries of these two is green. This helps us write on different lines, and we don't need 2 / before each one. So there we go. Now that is how to use C++ comments. Let's have a look at in-depth view of user input using the cin function. Okay, when using the cin function, we are asking something from the user. This is usually please enter a value as such. Okay, so we can edit our last line here and ask the user, what is your age, for example. Okay, let's change the variable name so we know what we're on about. It's not very good practice to use variables that mean nothing at all to you, so we can say age, something like that. Be careful that not to use C++ built-in values when defining your variables. For example, if we try to use a variable called void, you know, it's not going to like it. It's color-coded it blue, it thinks it's a void from there, and we can't use it as a variable. It has to be something unique. Okay, so age, it looks like it's unique, it's black, it's not being used by C++. So if we used endal, that wouldn't work, but it still looks black, but it would not work. So let's use age here. We are initializing it to 0, so when we run the program, it follows it down. This is the first line of code it executes within the procedure, setting age to 0, and it's asking the user, what is your age? Remember, don't put endal after this, because the user is going to type here, so he doesn't really want to type on a new line afterwards. So let's look up this new function here. Okay, this is known as the cin function, otherwise known as console input. You can see that the arrows go to the right, and here is our variable that is going to hold the value. To get the right way around with these arrows, you can often get confused, but if you remember it as console input puts a variable into the variable, as you can see the arrows go into the variable like so. So that's how I try and remember the way around with these arrows here. Okay, so what it's doing is asking the user for their age. Very cheeky, I know, but there you go. We are storing that variable the user types into age here. That's all that's going to happen. We won't know if it's worked unless we display the variable afterwards. So let's display the value. Console output. The user entered age. Okay, we're not asking a question, therefore we can put endline. It helps us, you know, sort things out a little bit. So let's have a look if this works, and fingers crossed it would. So what is your age? Let's type something like 87. The user entered 87. Press a key to continue. Lovely, so it does work. As you can see, I made a little typo error there. You can change them when you like. Now let's have a quick look at errors and warnings at the bottom. Okay. As you can see, we've got the start of the string but no end of the string. It's come up with 2 errors. So if we scroll up and look at these errors here, we're missing a semicolon before the curly brace, new line in constant. Well, this doesn't really tell you much, does it? If you can double click on these errors it's pointing out. And you can see, look, this little blue line here is pointing to the line where the error occurs. So if we double click on the first one, you can see that there's an error in this line somewhere. If you glance your eyes over it, and there you go, you can see that the string has one speech mark, but the other one is missing. So that's how to deal with such minor errors as that. So there you go. That concludes the tutorial on variables, console input, C++ comments, a little in-depth view on how to tackle errors, and type specifiers within the C++ environment. I'm Sean Greasley. Thank you for listening to the second edition of the C++ tutorial. Goodbye.